Town Board meeting to order for July 10th at 7:06 p.m. We will start with roll call from Ms. Garcia.
Mayor Christy Melendez.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Miles Baker.
Here.
Cindy Showerman.
Here.
Ken Bennett.
Here.
Paul Rennemeyer.
Here.
Brendan Boudreau.
Here.
Ivan Adams.
Here.
Mr. Adams, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item number 3 on this evening's agenda is review of agenda by the board and addition of items of new business to the agenda for consideration by the board. Is there any new items? If not, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve the agenda as printed tonight. Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for Mr. Rennemeyer and a second for Mr. Boudreau approving tonight's agenda. All in favor vote yes, opposed no.
I'm not quite sure it was working earlier.
Okay.
Is it showing on your dais?
Yep.
Okay, can you
Is
read
it?
it from the dais?
It's not showing.
Passes unanimously.
Okay, it has
Approved unanimously.
it's approved unanimously. Item number 4, Board Liaison Reports. Mayor Pro Tem Baker, Parks, Recreation, and Culture Advisory Board.
Thank you. We met, the June meeting was a tour of the many park facilities, some old, previous capital improvement projects and some future ones that are going to be proposed this year. It was really informative. I think everyone enjoyed it, and I would suggest that the town board take a similar tour at some point, maybe this fall or next spring. That's it.
Okay. Ms. Showerman, Water and Sewer Board, Clearview Library Board.
The Water and Sewer Board met on the 28th and reviewed fee structure options for the Stormwater Master Plan update, and will be making recommendations to the town board at the July 24th work session. The Library Board met on the 29th, and they discussed some updates on the possible new library, including design, election planning, some mailers they're doing. Then they were also discussing some bylaw updates, and as we discussed during our work session, we're going to have Mr. McCargan and Ms. Emile reach out to the library board attorney to discuss some of the concerns we had with their bylaw updates.
Okay. Town Board Member Bennett, Planning Commission, Windsor Housing Authority.
No update from the Housing Authority, and Mr. Boudreau attended Planning Commission.
Okay. Town Board Member Rennemeyer, Historic Preservation Commission, Great Western Trail Authority.
There's no update from the Historic Preservation Commission, and the short version of the update from Great Western Trail Authority is we have just applied for 501c3 nonprofit status, so hopefully we can start garnering some donations into the trail as we look forward to expanding the trail from Severance to Eaton. And one of our items on our consent calendar tonight is regarding the construction and design and development of the trail from Severance to Eaton, which I'm sure everybody read in the packet tonight. So that's kind of the short update from the Great Western Trail Authority.
Okay. Town Board Member Boudreau, Chamber of Commerce.
Actually, Mr. Rennemeyer is supposed to be doing Chamber of Commerce now, but I do have a report from Planning Commission.
Okay.
I attended on behalf of Mr. Bennett July 5th, and we set a record time with how quickly the meeting went, finishing in less than 15 minutes. Just had one item that is not coming before the board anytime soon, the Fossil Creek Ranch subdivision, preliminary major subdivision review. So
Okay.
no further reports at this time.
And there's no update from the Chamber of Commerce, by the way. Our regularly scheduled meeting is this Wednesday morning, so.
Okay. Town Board Member Adams, Tree Board, Poudre River Trail Corridor Board.
There's no further information from the tree board from what I talked about last time. But as far as the Poudre River Trail Board, I want to discuss a couple things. I think they're very important. And the first one is that they are in the process of recruiting a new Poudre Trail management person, and they are actually moving forward, but they are accepting applications now for that. And that's an important position for the Poudre Trail Board. And secondly, I want to talk a little bit about the Coalition for the Poudre River Watershed. They've been working with the Linker Technologies and their team since December of 2016 to develop a lower Poudre recovery and resiliency master plan. The project is coordinated by the CPRW and is guided by a steering committee made up of reps from the town of Windsor, the city of Greeley, Weld, and Larimer County. And the purpose of the project, and the reason I want to go into this is I think we minimize the importance of the Poudre River Trail too often, and it is a very important part of what our two counties are doing. And so anyway, the purpose of the project is to develop a master plan and a sediment transport model to identify and prioritize flood recovery needs and future river resilience and restoration work. Secondly, the project will identify and prioritize the following. 1, remaining unmet recovery restoration needs. 2, hazards to the ecosystem, community, recreation, and transportation infrastructure. 3, opportunities to create resiliency for future or to the future floods. 4, opportunities to improve river resilience, increase habitat connectivity, wildlife habitat, floodplain access, etc. And 5, they want to develop a sediment transport model that will assist in identifying high-risk areas and provide a better assessment of the overall condition of the lower, I guess I lost me, but anyway, the lower areas that we talked about previously. But it's a lot of work, but it's work that is needed, and it's work that we've seen in the last few years, a constant flooding problem, damage to the trail, and damage to the banks of the river. So this is a very important study, and one that has to be and should be done. That's it, thank you.
And then I have Downtown Development Authority and the MPO. For Downtown Development Authority, we had our meeting on June 29th. We brought in our 2 new board members that the board appointed. And we did elect a new chair, which is Dan Staus, and our vice chair is Craig Peterson. We're holding off to determine whether or not we still need a treasurer, so that will be decided at our next meeting. And then we gave recognition to outgoing and longstanding board member Bob Winter and Dean Kaler. Bob Winter, who's an outgoing member. Dean Kaler still remains on the board, but he was recognized for his current years of service. Some of the highlights of the meeting was we are continuing conversation with regards to the backlot property. We do have a development out to a developer and an RFP out on that. We should hear something back within the next 30 days on that. They have completed a Main Street business survey. They reached out to 60 to 64 businesses and received about 31 responses to date. The next phase of that survey will be, they'll be back in town, I believe it's in August I think it's probably August or September, and this time they'll go survey shoppers that they find in downtown. So if you're interested, they do have a good report on the current information from the business survey. I'm sure at some point it will be on their website and it will be available to you all, but it gives us good information. What we're looking for there is ways we can better communicate and how we need to address our businesses in downtown. We also are continuing with what we're calling the mini grant wayfinding in terms of signage right now. And right now we're coordinating with Colorado University technical assistance to work with the university there on helping us with a signage plan, which will be less costly than if we just hire a group ourselves. So should be having an update on that coming soon. As far as the MPO, we had a fairly short meeting. Our meeting was primarily taken up that evening by an executive session with regards to an issue concerning the executive director. But we did have a report that evening from the Air Pollution Control Division report, because within the next year, by 2018, we have to be a certain level below billions per particles in order to conform to meet the regulations that we need, or it's possible the EPA will revoke our non-attainment classification. So we're working on that. However, we do have a 3-year time window and period, and they take so while we've been above those attainment levels the previous 2 years, we're hoping that we will have, they take the best level of all 3 years. So we're hoping we can get some better levels to report this year, and there's a possibility that we can be deemed an extension if for some reason we can't get that. The good news on the part that they reported is that all of our ozone levels to date, while the particles per billion are up, all of our ozone levels as a whole, though, are on a decrease. So I don't know how that works, how we're up with our billions of particles, but at the same time, we have good standards of air quality. We are purchasing 8 new vans for the Van Go program. The Van Go program is maintaining a 90% occupancy rate, with many vans having at least 7 registered riders, and that total number continues to climb. Along those lines, as a board, we did approve and recommend a letter that is going to our folks in DC, our congressmen who are looking to implement some kind of tax elimination that would eliminate commuter benefits, and we're asking them to please retain those commuter benefits as it might affect our Van Go program, which has to date been successful and is very popular. The only other thing really was that MPO continues to look for additional funding sources for the I-25 expansion, and I do have a Coalition 25 meeting this Wednesday, and I'm sure we'll be talking about identifying those. I talked to you last meeting about some of those in conjunction with what we were looking at with some possible Colorado Senate Bill 267, which might provide some funding that we would put into some particular buckets, with one of those being for I-25. So that concludes my 2 reports on both of those agenda items. We'll move on then to item 5 this evening, which is a proclamation for National Parks and Recreation Month. Whereas parks and recreation programs are an integral part of communities throughout the country, including Windsor, Colorado. And whereas our parks and recreation are vitally important to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our communities, ensuring the health of all of our citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of a community and region. And whereas parks and recreation programs build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas parks and recreation programs increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of the local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And now, therefore, be it resolved by the Windsor Town Board that July is recognized as Park and Recreation Month in the town of Windsor, Colorado. Congratulations. And thank you for the great job that all of the staff and team do with Parks and Recreation for the town. Moving on to item B is our consent calendar. Our consent,
Item 6.
oh, I'm sorry, item 6, sorry. Most important one, public invited to be heard. This is for individuals wishing to participate in a public invited to be heard, which is a non-agenda item. You're requested to, I'm gonna read the ones who've signed up here, to come up when your name is, when I say your name, come up to the form, to the foyer, to the podium here, state your name and address for the record. Then we'll start the timer and you have your 3 minutes to address the board. This is for individuals wishing to address again, on a non-agenda item. And so we will start with our first person this evening is Sandra Pickleton? Pickleton.
Sandra Pilkington, 1664 Sorensen. Madam Mayor and council members, my request is to restrict heavy commercial trucks from using Jacoby Road as a thoroughfare where it runs between 2 residential neighborhoods. I live on Sorensen Drive in Jacoby Farms residential area in Windsor. And with school starting soon, this is a very big concern for many of us in the neighborhood. With children crossing Jacoby Road, we've already had a couple of close incidents. My house and at least half of the houses on Sorensen Drive, as well as a significant number of houses in the Windsor development back up to Jacoby Road, also known as Road 38E. Recently, the trucks from the rock quarry west of Windsor on 38 East in Larimer County have started to use Jacoby Road as a thoroughfare, rumbling and often speeding up and down Jacoby Road from 7 in the morning to about 4 every afternoon. I have submitted a request on the Town of Windsor website and have been told many of the other residents backing up to Jacoby Road have also submitted it, asking us, requesting that these trucks not be allowed to travel through residential streets as a transport route. The request does not include regular, all commercial, just these trucks that run on a regular basis. A truck passes along this road about one every 3 minutes, 9 hours a day. I've clocked numerous 10-minute periods on various days, counted the number of trucks that pass by. I've counted as many as 9 in a 10-minute period, but usually a little less than 6 or 5 or 6. The path the trucks take is from the rock quarry to 38 East to where 38 becomes Jacoby Road. And I've drawn this here. Instead of taking 17th to Main, they come through Jacoby Road and off onto 15th Street so that they can, I am told it's so they can bypass the way station, that temporary way station that is frequently set up down here. This is a problem for quality of life, safety of our children, and retainment of the good condition of the street. It seems they could achieve the exact same destination by traveling on 17th. They come from down here. I am asking, this is a residential area. Should commercial trucks be able to use that commercial or that residential street as a main thoroughfare? I am asking that these trucks be restricted from using that, and I thank you. Thank you. I didn't give this to anyone because I didn't see anybody to give it to.
Would you like us to take it? Thank you. You have more? Thank you.
Our second person we have this evening is Santiago Nino. Mr. Nino.
Hello, good evening. My name is Santiago Nino, and I reside at 127 North 6th Street. I want to know, my question has to do with safety around here. I live right next to the museum, and I brought some show and tell pictures here on the dry, natural tall grasses with weeds. I'm concerned that there's going to be a fire real soon. Yeah, okay.
Just go ahead and talk to them if you want.
Okay, and then, I got other pictures in here too. Also what brings concern is I've been, calling the cops a lot because of kids lighting fireworks back there behind the museum, vandalizing the museum, and this has been happening after a lot of the events that the town has on a Thursday or a Friday. You know, I'm grateful that they do that. It's great for the kids. But we got a bunch of kids that are rotten apples. And also, I'd like to talk about maybe policing that area a little more after that, because we got a lot of racers that go up and down the street there. I mean, there's been numerous calls into the police department for people driving really fast, and that's my main concern. I know they're going to be working on this project, but we need some action taken care of right now on this weed or natural tall grasses, because they're really dry. And now that, you know, we're in the midst of a fire, everybody's taking care of fires. That's my main concern right here. And I don't want to see the museum burn down or any of the areas around that burning down. So that's my main concern, my main objective.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else in the evening, in the audience this evening that wishes to speak in the public invited to be heard segment? Okay. Seeing none. First of all, I just want you.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
I just wanted to ask staff probably regarding Jacoby Road. Is there a way that we could maybe get some updated or additional information about car and truck traffic on Jacoby Road?
We would be happy to write a general outline of what we know are current conditions, and then some recommendations on how you could assess the situation and get information, and if you're interested, that would then allow you to make a decision on if there's anything further you would like to do. So we could provide that this week to you in a written format, and then seek your guidance next week on anything you'd like to do further on that subject.
I would appreciate that, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then I know with Mr. Nino's concern, I know Chief Klemick and Mr. Lucas have been actively working towards resolve for that. So if, I don't know, so if you have any additional questions, they can meet with you to have those further concerns. Okay. Okay, moving on then to item B, our consent calendar. Our consent calendar this evening consists of 5 items: minutes of the June 26, 2017 regular meeting, report of bills for June 2017, resolution number 2017-45, a resolution affirming the approval of the final plat for the Rain Dance subdivision first filing of the town of Windsor, Colorado, resolution number 2017-46, a resolution approving a professional services agreement between the town and Interwest Consulting Group for design services associated with improvements to the Great Western Trail, and item 5, resolution number 2017-47, a resolution approving the ascensioning of items to the town of Windsor Museum collection.
Madam Mayor, I would move that we approve the consent calendar as presented.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for Mr. Bennett and a second for Mr. Redemeyer asking for approval of the consent calendar as presented. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the consent calendar is approved as presented. Moving on to item C, board action for this evening. Our first item, number 1, is an ordinance number 2017-1540. An ordinance repealing, amending, and readopting a portion of section 6-1-10 of the Windsor Municipal Code concerning town clerk administrative authority for special events permits. This will require a supermajority vote. It is second reading and legislative action. Ms. Emel.
Thank you, Mayor Melendez, Town Board. On June 26th, we had the first reading of this ordinance. This ordinance imposes additional criteria that's required to be presented before the town clerk can exercise the administrative approval over special event permits. There have been no changes since that first reading. As you indicated, this is second reading. Supermajority vote is required after public comment, if any.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments? Is there anybody in the audience this evening who wish to make public comment on this item this evening? Okay. Seeing none, we have everything then that we need. I think nothing has changed, you said, from the previous reading? Okay, then I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve ordinance number 2017-1540.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer and a second from Mr. Bennett approving ordinance number 2017-1540. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And it passes unanimously. Moving on to item 2, resolution number 2017-48. A resolution approving an agreement for certain economic inducements and development incentives between the town of Windsor, Colorado and East Pointe Windsor LLC with respect to the development of property for commercial purposes within the town of Windsor. This is legislative action, and Ms. Johnson will present.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Town Board members. You have the memo in your packet that describes a little bit of the history that we've been working on this project. As you guys are well aware, this has been a long process with several developers trying to get that east end of town cleaned up and developed. And so we've, Kelly and I have been working on that probably since I've been here, trying to get the developers and all the problems taken care of. So just a quick review kind of what's going on there. Chris Ruff and his team, the investment group, has purchased the 2 parks that are out there, which are East Pointe and Falcon Pointe. Falcon Pointe is the limited industrial park, and East Pointe is the retail park, both located in the southeast corner of Highway 392 and 257. So the investment that they've made for both parks is just about over $6 million for the cleanup and the investment that they've made for both of those acreages that you see listed there. And then right now they currently have 3 tenants signed for the retail portion, which is the Come and Go, the Human Bean, and Doug's Day Diner. Again, here's a locational map that kind of shows specifically where East Pointe Park is in the development for retail in Windsor. Here's more of a layout and kind of a configuration about where those specific retailers are going to go. As you can see, Lot 4 is where the Come and Go will be. Lot 5 is where the Human Bean will be. And then Building 1, which is right here in this location, Doug's Day Diner will be locating in that portion of that first building. So the request for you tonight is a partial reimbursement for the infrastructure improvements that were on Highway 392. Chris Ruff and his team had come to us in discussion in 2015 to talk about reimbursement for these. And we had kind of agreed a conditional letter upon public approval that we would try to help offset some of those costs based on acquiring retail sales tax generating entities to that location. He had to move forward before final approval because it was saving money to actually have it done when the overlay was done on 392. So we had a conditional letter out to him, and then it took a couple years to get some of the other problems solved so that we could come back here before you tonight for final approval. The recommendation is 3% of the 3.95% sales tax that's generated out there, and that's the revenue to go to East Pointe for $405,000. to that amount or until July 1st of 2022, which is about a 4-year window starting in January, hopefully when those businesses are starting to open up. And that's whichever comes first. So if those businesses do not generate what we think we're going to generate out of them at that 3% rate, that's what he's reimbursed until that point if the date comes first. If he reaches that amount before then obviously we're done with the reimbursement and we'll move forward with full collection. Again, the payback total is $405,000. The complete estimate was actually $485,000. So we've only agreed to reimburse the majority portion of that, but he has paid another $80,000 on his own. Total projected annual sales tax revenue from those 3 businesses at 3% is about $120,000 annually, and that's a payback of 3.38 years. So tonight, before you, I'm requesting approval of Resolution 2017-48, an incentive agreement for reimbursements of infrastructure improvements using 3% of the 3.9% sales tax revenue generated on that East Pointe site. Chris Ruff is here as a representative to speak if you have any questions for him as well.
Mr. Baker.
I have a question. In your memo, you say the developer knows that they will not be eligible for any additional incentives. Does that mean new retail establishments are not eligible? Or will they contribute to this payback or not?
They will contribute. So
They'll
there are a couple more entities that we can't publicly announce
That's
yet.
fine.
But so the more he brings on, the quicker he brings on, the quicker he gets reimbursed. But there will be no other incentives offered because this is almost like a whole entire site incentive. So meaning we've incentivized this site. Now that's up to you if something happens and changes and you decide that you would like to incentivize something. We have a one of a kind in the world that's coming to this location, and that's, again, that's up to you, but that's the agreement that Town Manager Kelly Arnold and Town Manager John Holdren with Severance came and said, we're done with incentivizing this particular project because there were so many hurdles to overcome in getting this project developed. We've been trying to aid as they've come along, but really without our assistance and Severance's agreement to help share about $135,000 of that 405, this project wouldn't get developed. And it's a good entryway into Windsor for us, and we're excited to redevelop that and make it look nice again.
Thank you.
Any additional questions? Mr. Renmeyer.
That last slide that you were showing, the 120,000 a year, is that from the 3 businesses? Is that estimated just based on the 3 businesses that have already signed letters of intent or have already?
That is correct.
Okay.
And we couldn't break those out individually because it's proprietary, but yeah, that's from the gas station and the Human Bean and the Doug State.
So obviously it'll get paid back quicker if there's more entities producing tax revenue.
Yes, we know there are other interested parties, but nobody has signed yet, so.
Do we have an update from Severance and if their town board approved?
So they're waiting for us to get approved tonight, and Ian has drafted an agreement with them, and that has been delivered to their attorney and to John Holdren, and they're reviewing and plan on going forward this month to get it approved.
Can you just clarify exactly what Severance?
Sure. The town attorney for Severance contacted me this afternoon and said they were okay with the language that we have added to yet another IGA with Severance. So we take the $405,000, we take 1/3 of that, and we agree that that is Severance's share that Severance needs to reimburse us for what we're reimbursing to Mr. Ruff's organization. That $135,000 is repaid to us under this new IGA by us withholding Severance's share of the revenue share that they would otherwise get from retail activity in this property. So once we recover that $135,000, then Severance is good on its side, and then the full revenue share on sales tax would continue.
So we actually are recovering the $405,000 as a reimbursement to the applicant or to the developer, but then we have to, and then another 135, or the 135 is included in the 405.
The 135 is backfilling a portion of the 405 that we are paying to the developer as an incentive. So that's Severance's theoretical 1/3 of that 405,000. $5,000 incentive that's before you tonight.
So I apologize. Yeah, we do have a 2/3, 1/3 agreement for property tax and for sales tax. This is only sales tax. So we will continue to collect not only the 0.95 of our sales tax, that's a dedicated revenue for the community rec center, but we will collect property tax as well. That will not be remitted to go back to that total of the 405. So we will be gaining revenue on that site. I can't do estimates.
So as we move forward, any properties that come into that site, is sharing IGA on retail sales tax with Severance.
That's right, but until the $135,000 is withheld by us to repay their third of our 405, Severance won't collect that additional sales tax revenue.
Okay. Mr. Boudreau?
Madam Mayor, Ms. Johnson, I recall seeing a letter from Mr. Ruff in which he was talking about kind of the reasons for the expenses here at one time, and I recall talking about the state imposing the requirements for something dealing with 392, and I can't seem to find the letter, but what were the true reasons for the costs that we're reimbursing here when it comes to infrastructure?
So maybe Chris can talk about the specifics of what
Sure.
the work was that was done.
We were required, as part of East Point, to widen Highway 392. 2 years ago, the opportunity presented itself that CDOT and the state had funded the overlay that happened on 392 that went from essentially the cemetery over to Highway 85. So we tried to coordinate our efforts with them and at the same time work our reimbursement agreement. They were ready to go, we weren't, and so we went and borrowed money to get that done because it saved probably about $150,000, $200,000 by we just paid for the widening of the road, which is essentially what that $485,000 was for, as opposed to probably 600-ish, because then they'd come in and overlay it anyway because the road was already there. So that's how this unfolded.
Okay. Thank you. Follow-up question, I think maybe for Mr. Arnold. Is this, for the widening of 392 there, is that something that the town would have been interested in doing anyways without this development, or kind of?
Probably not.
No?
No, it would have been but for this development as an entryway.
I'm sorry, what was it?
It would have been for this development, specific.
Okay. Gotcha, okay. And I guess follow-up question for Ms. Johnson too. What's our history in doing these kinds of agreements when it comes to like the reimbursements for infrastructure like this, dealing with state highway expansion and stuff like that?
Yeah, the last one that we've actually done was $642,000 to the summit.
Okay.
And the 7-Eleven in the areas located on Crossroads and Fairgrounds Avenue. That was where we paid for water, sewer, the road, and the berming on the eastern portion of that site to attract 2 retailers to come in. That was a target of being paid back just over 3 years and was actually paid back under 2.7, I believe.
Okay.
So we do have a history of doing that. This is unique on this, and because this is an entryway and it has had a history of not looking the best, I think this was a different motivation for us to specifically look at beautifying and hopefully attracting some good retailers on this in a town that will not only serve us, but hopefully other people will utilize it going through 392 and 257.
Mr. Baker?
Yeah, I have a follow-up to Mr. Boudreau. Mr. Arnold, we wouldn't have needed these improvements without this development. But if there would be no development without any improvements there, I assume. It would have been really difficult to get.
Correct. Yes, it would have been a requirement of this development to put these improvements in.
And did these improvements affect Severn's property on the north? Is this?
We're doing turn lanes on 392 to the north.
Do they affect what?
Well, does this enhance the value of the Severn's property on the north, or was the improvement only on like the southern portion?
No, it was both sides. I mean, if you go down 392, it got widened on both sides. I think we did 7 or 8 feet on the north side and 12, 15 on the south side. It's just the way the road laid out. So does it enhance that? Perhaps. It's certainly something they will benefit from, yes.
That's still in Windsor though.
Oh,
Directly north. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, if you're talking about
That's not part of the,
It is, yes, that north side is, okay, so it's still in the agreement area, but it is a property.
Okay. Did you have anything additional, Mr. Baker? Any additional questions?
I had a quick question that I thought of. This ties in some of the conversation that we've heard from CDOT, that if his development goes over huge, that then we might have to entertain another turn lane on 257 out onto 392, a second turn lane heading south onto 257 from 392. You know, those type of improvements, is that something that will be a partnership as well with this development? Have we had those kind of conversations? I know that that's for another time, once we have the traffic volume to justify all of that, to which CDOT tells us it's time, it needs to be done. I was just curious what your thoughts were, Mr. Ruff, on that.
No, we do not have a partnership to do that. As the pioneer development out there, we're getting stuck with everything. Our development arguably hardly needed 392 to be widened, maybe in the future, but we had to do it now. Same with 257. You know what the traffic issues are right there, or right now, before we've done anything. And you've still got development coming on the northeast corner, and the library, for one, on the northwest corner, plus other stuff that will go there. It's just that it all got kind of loaded on this deal because we were the first guys that showed up. So we don't really have any way of continuing that funding over a 10-year period. I mean, it's a pretty small development, and so short answer is no.
Well, and I'll be your number one proponent on wanting that development to be successful, so
Yeah, sorry.
I know, by no means asked that question. I know you've been dealt an interesting hand out there,
You
but
know-
I
I want to make sure though, Paul, so there is still opportunity. So if he comes in with a large something that generates lots of traffic on one of his sites, will probably require a traffic light.
Yes.
And if it does break that condition, before he gets a building permit, you probably have an opportunity to negotiate and talk about that, so.
is there any opportunity to negotiate that 3 years from now or something like that, based upon the total development, the total traffic flow, and what it's doing to?
I think it'd be a case by case, so if we start seeing it's getting there, and we get to that point, and we think that we need to look at it before next building permit's issued, we have an opportunity to do it.
Okay.
Really the key to that whole thing is getting something to the north happening, because we can't really do anything with 257 as far as getting a double turn lane until the north part there of 19 gets developed and that section gets widened, because there's nowhere for the traffic to go. So that's Dugan's piece essentially.
I just wanted to throw that out there as far as what I had been thinking as far as how this goes, and I know that the town's partnering, et cetera, with you in this project, and I'm all for that. I just wanted to kind of say I'm interested in having that dialogue, you know, with your team down the line when it comes to what road improvements may need to be done down the line.
Any additional questions or comments? So I will be supporting the resolution and this incentive this evening. I know there were a couple of us who were out at the groundbreaking last week, and I think we all shared the same in agreement that this development, I mean, we require our developers to pay to play. I think this shares with that, because they have to show some progress here. They have to have some businesses up and running before we return some of this money. But I think that we would all agree that this is gonna be a huge needed improvement to that corner and provide some much needed anticipated amenities to those folks who live out in that area as well. So, okay, Mr. Baker?
yeah, I'm gonna support this as well. You guys know my position on incentives, but I think pretty basic function of government is infrastructure, and reimbursing infrastructure, I think, is a good use of our tax incentives.
I would just point out that this is truly public infrastructure that you're supporting. None of that's going into our actual development. It's the highway that we're touching, so.
Okay, with that said, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2017-48.
Second?
The motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Adams approving resolution number 2017-48. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the motion passes 6-1 with the yeas being Baker, Sharman, Bennett, Melendez, Rennemeyer, and Adams, and the nay being Boudreau.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Town Board members.
Thank you. Moving on to item 3, resolution number 2017-49, a resolution affirming the town of Windsor's commitment to put healthy opportunities and choices within reach of all residents in the community and joining Live Well Colorado Healthy Eating, Active Living, Heal Cities and Towns campaign. Presentation by Ms. Foch, our Recreation Manager. Ms. Foch.
Thank you, guys. I'll just give you a quick overview of what the Heal Cities Towns and campaign is. It is a partnership with the Colorado Municipal League and Live Well Colorado. What it does is it provides our community with resources for active living, healthy food access, and workplace wellness. It will give us free access to programs and stuff through this Live Well group that we can offer to our community. It shows funders that we have a plan in place and opens many doors for grants and funding opportunities in the future. It shows our investment in health and the quality of life opportunities. Just a few things that we've already done, kind of leading up to going down this road of the Heal Cities and Towns, is obviously the farmers market, which has been a success over the last 2 weeks. We currently offer the SNAP program, but next year we're in line to offer the Double Up program, which is folks that have the SNAP program can be matched up to $20 in free monies that go towards purchasing things at our farmers market. Walkable and bikeable communities. Wade's been working on getting that ball rolling more with trail connectivity. Community gardens we've talked about, and then healthy partnerships. Obviously, we have a fantastic one with our school district already. We just signed a vending policy at the rec center where we are offering 50% or more healthy options. If you guys have been in the rec center up on the second floor by the wellness center, we now have a 100% healthy option vending machine with drinks and other items. And then also the recreation division has signed a policy with Weld County to only offer healthy snacks if we have like staff meetings or luncheons. And then also encouraging walking meetings and different ways of making meetings healthy. If the meeting lasts over an hour, get up and do a 10-minute walk, or get your group to meet and do a walk while you talk, kind of thing. So just a few things that are already, we have the ball rolling, but what this resolution does is really gives us the opportunity to get some support through Live Well Colorado and move forward with making our community more active and healthier options. Do you guys have any questions?
Looks like Mr. Rennemeyer does.
Well, the question just came up because I've actually talked to Miss Julie George at one of our CML events. I believe it was a year ago. And so they partner with the town
Yes.
to help provide financial assistance to be able to implement more healthy living choices and stuff like that.
So
How
they
does that?
offer Live Well, and with Julie, what she does is offer resources. She's a phone call away. She'll come up here. She'll help us do presentations to groups. What they do is they get you the resources for grants. Specifically, Kaiser Permanente is a huge sponsor, which they actually sponsored our farmers market this last go round. So what Julie is she's a fantastic resource for us to call, and if they have any toolkits that they can offer us in all those 3 different categories, she'll provide those. So.
Is there any other? You've named some of the things that have already been implemented that go along with this program. Are there any other things that are still on the horizon that are going to be done?
I think getting the communication out to the public about walkable, the trail connectivity is a huge one. Wade and I have talked about doing a Walk Windsor campaign so that folks know that the ditch number 2 trail takes you to Windsor Lake, and that it's safe to ride your bikes on there. And what do we do for, maybe we enhance safe crossing areas and stuff like that, I think are huge. We've talked as a staff about community garden options, like where you can rent a plot. Is very popular now because a lot of people don't want to have that in their backyard, or yards are so small anymore. Maybe we could offer that type of opportunity to them. And then also workplace wellness. How can we as the town of Windsor set an example for other businesses? Can we do business challenges. Now that we have this great amenity in town at the recreation center, can we have, you know, a Vestas versus, you know, another business do a wellness challenge and see how the different businesses, but really to try and get other businesses to hop on that bandwagon of workplace wellness too.
Nate, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Boudreaux.
Madam Mayor, just a couple questions for you regarding the program. In the memo that you give recommendation, there is no financial impact. Kind of curious though, I would imagine with some of the recommendations that come with the program, are there any mandates that come upon the town that will then cause increases in operations for the town?
You know, I think that would fall probably more under like the Recreation and Parks divisions with programming options, where sometimes with programs we have, you know, that fall within our cost recovery pyramid, that if we do programs that cost, you know, heavy on staff, then we make it sure it falls, or else we, through the budget process, request it as that community events type opportunity.
Okay, so currently we're not participating as part of this program, correct?
Correct.
So after participating in the plan, or in this program, excuse me, I'm getting my words mixed, there are certain requirements that come upon the town of a part of the recreations division that will then...
There could be if you offer programming opportunities,
Okay.
but like the healthy vending policy didn't cost us anything, and actually with that machine in our facility, we get 30% of all the profits that come in off that machine. So there are possibly, you know, if we have the community garden, we could make revenue off, you know, renting out plots on a monthly basis too. So I think there's also the other side of it, where it might take a staff to lead a community bike ride. We might also be able to partner with Spokes in town to have
Sure.
Spokes lead the community bike ride. So I think definitely there'd be some staff time getting those balls rolling, kind of similar to programs that we're currently doing too. So.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. The reason I ask is that, you know, oftentimes we get these programs presented to us, and it's, you know, it's billed to us as if it's this free program. Next thing you know, mandates keep coming down, and I sometimes often wonder if there's things that we can look at here that we can implement, and it sounds like we've already implemented quite a few of these things locally that we can control and that we have oversight on without somebody from Denver or DC, you know, forcing their way upon us and causing all sorts of other issues.
And there are the different levels. There's the eager, and it's, you know, as a town board, you guys can decide that we want to be elite status or we just want to be active status. And then, you know, but depending on how many policies we choose to adopt, then it kind of determines your status. And if we want to just maintain where we don't put a lot of money into it, but things that are easy to enforce, you know, like healthy meetings, you know, those are different policies that we can get rolling that don't cost money too. So.
And just out of curiosity, for future boards, is there the opportunity to opt out if the board decided that this wasn't working out?
You know, I'd have to get back to you on that and ask Julie more details on that. Yeah.
So if I can expand on the answers a little bit more. So if you go to section 4 of the resolution, I would have rewritten it differently. And I'll tell you what it means in my opinion. So it says each department head should report back to town board annually regarding steps taken to implement this resolution. I'll do that report and give it to you from input from it'll be an organizational report back to you via our efforts. And then it also says an additional steps plan and any desired actions that would need to be taken by the town board. So what that is, in my world, we will give you a report, tell you what's going on, and if we are seeking other status, or if you see what is going on and we think there's other programming elements that we'd like to implement, we'll bring that to you, and if there's budget implications, you have to make that decision. This is a voluntary program.
Gotcha.
So this is not a mandatory program. So if we ever not do this, we essentially fall out of the program.
Okay.
But so for purposes of funding, federal mandates, that's not any
State
of this.
mandates.
This is just a voluntary program that's being participated in statewide by the
So there's no penalties for the town for not living up to current things, except for,
correct.
you know, them saying, oh, you're no longer the active level or
Right.
eager level, or.
This is really a this is really a program to keep this out in front of us as a kind of a value of ours
Okay.
that we want to try and attain and build upon. And then if we add to it, there might
Sure.
be some cost to that, but that's a decision you want to
But
make.
those are decisions that are made by this board and
That's
not
correct.
enforced down
That's
on the board. Okay. Appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Bennett?
Yeah, does being involved with Live Well give us any benefits applying for like a GoCo grant or other grants?
I think it's beneficial to say that you're a part of the Live Well program. I think it's, it's kind of a status. There's 47 towns and cities in Colorado right now that currently have it. So I think it's something that you can definitely, it would be a benefit to us to have that and say we're a part of it.
And there was that one program I think several of you went to with myself up in Breckenridge. Was it the Live Well grant program through Kaiser Permanente? And if you recall, several of those communities that qualify for those grants were Hill communities. And so again, if we seek some of those efforts, like Tara said, it probably would be beneficial to be
That's what I was
in the
thinking about.
status, yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And do we need to have a formal motion on this? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then see, if there's no further questions or comments, I would seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve resolution number 2017-49.
Second?
A motion on the floor from Mr. Rennemeyer and a second from Mr. Bennett, approving resolution 2017-49. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And it passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on to item 4, resolution number 2017-50. A resolution establishing strategies for operational, capital, emergency, and debt service funding and ensuring reasonable reserves in the town's portfolio of funds. Legislative action, and Mr. Moyer.
Yes, thank you, ma'am. In your packet, I enclosed an updated version of a memo concerning the fund balances that we had covered back in May. If I recall, we were over at the Art and Heritage Center, and we had it after a joint session with the school district. So what we talked about the basic policy or strategy that night, and what we wanted to do here this evening was memorialize this into a policy tool that we can use going into our budget discussions here in the next few months. So that's what this is doing. It's the same, like I said, it's the same thing I showed you in May. It's just that I updated the numbers using the 2016 audit numbers. So the good news is that the funds that we are talking about in here have all, they all comply with this policy. Even the rec center and the drainage fund, which are generally some of our weaker funds. So we're in good shape there. So that being said, I don't necessarily want to read through all of this, but I would answer any questions that you have. Short of that, I would recommend that we adopt the resolution as presented.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Moyer?
Madam Mayor, so in summary, it seems like a recommendation. I read through it, and it looks like we have some flexibility to use funds, kind of what we were discussing at our retreat last year on using some of these funds to pay down more debt. Is that fair to say that at least there is more available to go towards that goal?
Yes.
Great. I appreciate the time that you put into this. I think this
thank you.
Good practice, and we found some funds that we can better utilize and go towards that goal of making our town even more fiscally responsible.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr.
I
Baker?
guess more philosophical on the general fund, the first one you highlight there. Our new requirement would be $4.3 million, but we currently have 9.5. Mr. Boudreau, is that what you're discussing? Like you say we have an extra $5 million in the general fund?
What's that?
Because it says the new requirement would be 4.3 million. Yeah. Currently, after the audit was 9.5. So the remaining is 5.2. Like, yeah. That would be money we could use.
Yeah, towards paying off debt that we have.
That's not new money. It's just we're re-evaluating our reserve policy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
Because I would still be. I mean, I guess I'm a saver. I would be in favor of. That's a down the road question, discussion.
Yeah, I think what it does is that it gives us the opportunity to at least see what really is our reserve and how it's best utilized. And I think that there maybe there's a middle of the road where we can say, well, this is what our reserve should be, and maybe split the difference and say, well, we have an opportunity to use some of this for good, for paying down debt that has, you know, unruly interest rates or something.
So how is this handled in the future then? Is it only handled like on a case-by-case scenario? Does a board member have to bring it before, before the town manager that they want some action taken?
I'll let
or-
Dean take crack and I'll add to it.
I think what we were thinking to do is as we go through the budget process here, you know, basically in this memo here, levels 1 and level 2, we pretty much have to take care of those expenditures. 3 and 4, if we have money available for level 3 or 4 projects, then you all would decide what you feel you want to do with that. Be it pay down debt. We used it to pay cash for the public works building. You know that we're using some to incentivize the mill. You know, there's lots of things you can do with it. But to answer your question, ma'am, I was picturing it, and I think Kelly agrees, is that we would look at this during the budget discussions and see how we wanted to appropriate that.
And then moving forward, year
Yep.
to year, we would just continue to relook
Right.
review every budget.
So it's such, let me answer your question two ways. One is section 4 of the resolution reads, the criteria established here is advisory only. Nothing herein shall affect the authority and duty of town manager with respect to the budget recommendations. Which means, in my opinion, and how we've always envisioned is that there will be a step in the budget development and approval by you to consider it as policy. And so in fact, we'll probably even start the discussion on August 21st when we do the capital improvement budget. And the last slide in that budget discussion will be, here's our balance. And have that conversation, at least on the capital side and the sewer side also, a little bit. For the capital budget, it's a perfectly good discussion to have on August 21st. What do we have based upon the proposed capital we're providing to you? Do you want to look at any of that now? But the October retreat, we'll probably have a recommendation. Last slide is going to be, here's your balance. We recommend nothing, something, and then have that discussion as almost the last discussion item of every budget development.
Okay. Mr. Bennett?
I just want to make a comment for anybody in the audience and anybody who might be watching on TV, that I don't want to give the impression that we have extra money. We're looking ahead to NISP, we're looking ahead at possible water treatment plant, we're looking ahead at the roadway improvement and just maintenance of existing facilities. I want us to be careful, and I absolutely agree that if we have opportunities to pay down debt, that's a smart thing to do in some cases, but I don't want to leave the impression that we are talking about extra money. We have a lot of big projects in front of us the next decade or two, so.
Yes, sir.
Just want to make sure that's,
Good point.
that we don't send out the wrong message here.
Mr. Boudreaux?
Just real quick, wanted to make the point that yes, obviously it's not extra money, and to Mr. Baker's point, that I see this as making sure that our money is being used wisely, as in, isn't just being stuffed in a mattress somewhere that it couldn't be used more efficiently perhaps. But you know, I hyper focus on the level 4 because during the retreat that was something that I really focused on. But that level 3 too, that ability to, when we have capital projects that pop up where we can just pay cash or make a huge down payment on, there's a lot of value in that. So I wanted to clarify that I'm not just like, get rid of all debt, because obviously during our conversation we found out that, look, we've got NISP coming up here, and if we can store some money away for that and not have to go through the whole debt bonding process for the whole thing would be nice.
Okay, Mr. Reinhardt?
Well, I brought this up when we've had our retreats practically ever since I've been on the board, but are we basically just saying that we have too much in our general fund? I mean, essentially is what we're getting at, saying we don't need to have that much in there according to Tabor and everything else that I'm reading in there. Is that basically what we're saying, is that we can earmark a certain dollar amount to just be, it's there, we could keep it in the general fund, but we've earmarked it that it's not necessarily needing to be kept as, the right word, our reserve,
Yeah.
you know, that it's not necessarily needing to be kept as a reserve, it could be used for other
We could
things.
use it, we could use that for other projects and spend it down if that's what you desire.
And the money that we're talking about is staying in the general fund?
It's staying in each fund as I described in the
Okay,
memo.
okay.
Yeah. Now, you know, as you know, that each fund has things that it can and cannot do.
Right.
So we would have to use it in accordance with the charter and the statutes related to each fund. But one thing I would say about your question about too much money, as we come up here every month and I talk about record sales tax collection, record building permits, we just have a good deal of money now because we've had a few years in a row where we've grown, and hence our coffers have grown. Now the other part of it is we're kind of on a crest of a wave here, and that kind of growth brings a lot of bigger projects to follow. So, you know, we got to keep that in mind, which is why we do the capital improvement plan, to look ahead and plan to spend that money and not incur debt if at all possible, like we did with the Public Works building.
Right.
You know, we were able to write the checks for that.
And Dean's been here longer than I have, but just in my 10 years, we've gone through 2 times, and we're very glad that we have a reserve for tornado and for recession.
Yep.
It keeps operations going, and you can rely upon that, and that's probably the most important component to reserve at some level.
Mr. Adams?
Dean, as I read this, I want to commend you for a beautiful report. I think it was well done and a lot of information there. But, you know, I've heard discussion about NISP. I've heard discussion about, you know, the water treatment system. I kept looking for roads, and all the talking that we're doing about the roads that we need, did I miss that someplace, or?
No, the road work that we do, we generally pay for out of the capital improvement fund, which is on page number 4 on the top of the page. That's kind of another point that plays into that is, in addition to the building permit records we've been setting and sales tax records we've been setting, the oil and gas industry has been throwing off some more money as well. A few years ago, we decided to take our severance tax that we get from the state from oil and gas operations. We used to keep track of that in the general fund. A few years ago, we decided that we would use that windfall, as it were, to do extra road work. As an example, when I started here, we were getting maybe, you know, $10,000 or $15,000 a year on that severance tax. A few years ago, that jumped up to, I think the record year on that was $600,000. So we didn't need it in the general fund. We chose, as a step number 3 or 4 in this scenario, to move that money over to the capital improvement fund and do more road work while we had it. Now, you know, now we're back, it's coming back down the other way, so we can't do as much road work with that portion of the money anyway.
And Mr. Adams, can I add to that? Because I think I know where you're going a little bit. You might get a partial answer. But I think you've been very interested in expanding the road system and how to build out the road system. And so again, a good dialogue will be somewhere down the line when we have a new road master plan. And for instance, we are going to go after design grant for Crossroads coming up there. And there will, let's just use that for example. So Crossroads might be a perfectly good project in your example. I think where you're going with this, if I'm wrong, you'll correct me, I hope. But that having some reserve funds available could help a road project, expansion project too. Just like an incentive for a mill project, just like for downtown development. If you have those kind of reserves and you have a project that comes up in a timely fashion, you have the ability to do that. So an expansion of the road system could be a good example. I hope that's where you were going with that question.
Well, as I was reading all of this, I also went back and looked at the I-25 report about what that is costing per mile, and to just build roads and improve roads, and it's scary. So I felt, all right, can we put enough aside? I know we're putting money aside for NISP, but I guess I just want your reaction to that,
Yeah.
Dean, whether or not we can even touch the road situation, if we do and I know we have another meeting coming up, another retreat coming up, just talking about roads, and I think it's a very important one. And yes, Mr. Arnold, you're right, I'm very concerned about it, not maybe this year, but 10 years from now, I'm very concerned. I probably won't be around to see it,
So
but.
the capital we use, Mr. Adams, reserves or something, we could start talking about designating funds away for that. We could talk about road impact fee. Just today, I introduced a new idea to staff that I'm gonna bring to you and start talking about an opportunity that's out there, I think, that would be good source of funds for road expansion funds. I'm gonna think about a little bit more before a capital plan development, but, so yes, there is that opportunity if the board's interested.
Thank you. Sorry to take the time.
Any additional questions?
I just wanted to say that I keep the money in coffee cans. I don't really trust the mattress deal too much.
I'm sure that will do it, Dean.
Good man.
Who has a key
And
to
I'm
that
glad you
door?
are.
Good man.
Good man.
That's
Yeah.
Is it the orange rabbit or the?
That's recycling too, look at that. I like it.
If not, then I think we're ready to seek a motion.
Madam Mayor, I would move to approve.
Second.
Okay, a motion on the floor from Mr. Boudreau and a second from Mr. Baker, approving resolution number 2017-50. All in favor vote yes, opposed no. And the resolution passes unanimously. Moving on to item D, communications. Communications from town attorney.
Just two items. At the end of your agenda this evening, before adjournment, we have an executive session. And then when we come out of the executive session, I anticipate we'll adjourn to the Kern board meeting with a set agenda for that discussion. So just a preview of what's coming tonight. That's all I've got. Thank you.
Communications from town staff. Chief Clemick.
No communication.
Mr. Wagner. Ms. Unger. Ms. Emil. Ms. Johnson. Mr. Lucas. Ms. Van Meter. Okay, anything further, Mr. Moyer? Okay, Ms. Barkin? Okay, communications from town manager.
So next week at 5:30 is our recognition of our two outgoing board members that Patty and I need to continue dialoguing on how that is going for planning purposes. I looked down.
But they're coming.
Yes.
We know that much.
It should be a swell party. If you haven't looked out there, the names have already been etched in the stone and we're prepared. So you can't turn back now.
Paul's gonna be out there with a chisel taking my name off.
Yeah.
Hey, it won't be me.
So we'll do that from 5:30. We'll have an event out here. We probably will not do the tree planting again until next April. Just so you know, I think it's a better time of season to do that. And then we'll move inside and we'll talk. I'd like to do it on the first floor. We'll talk about the roadway improvement plan a little bit more, the road impact fee update. And also Julia Novak's can come in. We're gonna talk about the reorganization study that we're doing for Public Works. And so she'll be here to present that also next week. And then on the 24th, we have the storm drainage master plan update. And then I believe the attorney is ready to come in to talk about Metropolitan District updating it. So we're ready to do that. If you haven't had a chance, we'll probably even update some of the information. Sometimes it's good to have a place to, look at where other materials be made, and Loveland is talking about this very topic tomorrow night. They do not have, if you remember, metropolitan districts, residential metropolitan districts. They are seriously considering changing that policy. So in their packet of material, and I reviewed it and sent it on to folks, we'll probably use some of that and update. There is some relevant information you might find interesting that they're talking to tomorrow night about their policy that you might find interesting also. For now, we do have the fifth Monday in July 31st, and so we are not planning anything, but if something comes up or if you want to meet, let me know, but otherwise we have nothing planned, and that's all I have.
Okay. Communications from town board members. Any board members have anything?
I just wanted to ask Mr. Armour really quick. Loveland does not have a policy on Metro District, and they're entertaining possibly
Yes, they
having-
do not, they have no approved residential metropolitan districts,
Okay,
yes.
I just wanted to clarify.
Okay, I only have one thing to report. This Saturday at 7:30 is Coffee with the Mayor at the Community Rec Center in the Pine Room from 7:30 to 8:30. My special guest will be Mr. Lucas from Parks and Rec. So anybody who has or wants to have conversation, if for that time period, you can come from 7:30 to 8:30. I'm assuming he might be there longer too, but then joining me at 9:30 or 8:30? 8:30 to 10, we have folks from Weld County, Weld County Commissioner Sean Conway, as well as some other folks from Weld County coming to join us for any conversation or questions folks might have for Weld County. So we'll be there from about 7:30 to 10 and able to have a topic of discussion on a variety of different things that are top of mind with all of you. So with that being said, I would look for a motion to move into item E.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve into to approve. I move that we move to executive session pursuant to Colorado Revised Statutes 24-6-402, subsection 4. Subsection B, to confer with the town attorney for purposes of receiving legal advice on specific legal questions concerning eminent domain processes.
Is there a second?
Second.
A motion on the floor from Mr. Redemeyer and a second from Ms. Sharman to move into executive session. All in favor, vote yes. Opposed, no. And we are moving into executive session.